Today we had a chat with Pablo Ruiz Mosquit, CEO of Taiga and Kaleidos. He's an expert in Agile, and we chatted with him to find out more about remote working, new ways of managing projects during pandemic times, multidisciplinary teams, innovation, and Agile implementation. And here are our questions. Hope you enjoy. Has the pandemic affected Agile or Agile teams in any way?
Well, absolutely, yes. I'd say that two things come to mind. The pandemic has seen agile teams cope with it better than what I tend to call full agile teams, so false agile teams, and of course non-agile teams. Uh, why? Why is this? Because they are better prepared to deal with changes. Agile teams are great at embracing change, but even agile teams are affected by the pandemic, right? I mean, we have been affected by the pandemic, and we are proud of being super agile. So, how agile teams have been affected? Well, I'd say two ways mostly. First, we have been forced to quickly find new effective ways to communicate and negotiate both purpose and work. Through the pandemic, that has been most challenging. And also, you know, constantly be sure not to default to the agile liturgies and those empty habits that we always have due to the pandemic exhaustion. When you have that context or that mental load, you tend to just go on rails, right? And agile doesn't work great when you go on just on rails. Um, so that tend to bring less self-conscious processes, like you're not evaluating what you're doing, and that is something agile really treasures. And so I think agile teams, even great agile teams, have been experiencing that problem. True agile teams that were prepared to change and are always evaluation and analyzing how they are doing things and why they are doing things, probably have been sort of enjoying this forced situation better than non-agile teams or agile teams that were not mature enough.
How can Agile help an organization to be more innovation driven?
To be honest with you, um, this idea that agile brings innovation to organizations, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think agile is good at managing expectations around waste management, right? Agile is a lot about how to minimize waste, which is so tedious to deal with. But innovation management doesn't happen just because you are agile. I mean, I don't. Perhaps people are saying, "Wow, what is he saying? They're so connected." Not really. You know, there's some correlation, but there's no cause effect. Now, since Agile embraces change rather than seeing it as a troublemaker, like other contexts, they treat change as a problem. Like, oh, again, we have a change problem. Uh, Agile is like, no, we'll embrace change. Now, since this is true, you could argue that Agile teams and organizations that are Agile are more keen to be adaptive and prioritize based on evidence and perceived value. Like, when you have to deal with change, you have to prioritize, and you have agile techniques. You are best suited to identify really what's giving you more value, and that's a nice tool to have, right? In terms of innovation, but you won't get real innovation, without the incentive, the resources, of course. Um, Agile can only hope to make the most out of what you've got already. It doesn't create new matter when there is none, if I can use that analogy. It will transform with a lot of effectiveness what you've got into, the most innovative driven process. But it doesn't, like, for free give you innovation. You need, as I said, incentive, motivation, resources. Without that, Agile is just like a very efficient technique, but you need more than that. And I think organizations and teams need to be aware of this. Um, there's, as I say, there's a correlation, but if you want innovation to happen, make sure you inject energy to the system. And of course, you have to be agile, but you need more than just that.
Can remote work be effective for agile teams?
Sure, you can. I think provided that they don't forget the Agile Manifesto principle that says individuals and interactions over processes and tools, you know, then I think that's key to keep in mind. Now, remote has its own challenges, and you cannot underestimate them. At the same time, there are advantages, and you'd be a fool not to benefit from them. So it's a pros and cons. I mean, the pandemic gives you extra cons just because of the context is really so exhausting. But for me, remote work won't be effective for agile teams if there's not a natural order of how to approach your teammates, depending on what you need from them. And remote communication does sometimes struggle with that. Like agile is about reducing waste, and dysfunctional communication creates tons of waste. And remote work, honestly, can quickly lead to a surplus of meetings, little to no reflection or documentation, and numerous chat interruptions. It's a tendency that we have, and I think that that quickly leads to waste. And waste is the main enemy of agile, right? Also, my personal fear, is that remote work will tend to over-engineer tools and processes, and that's a risky business. Like you will try to rely too much on automation, tools, processes, workflows, because communication between people is not that great. So you say, okay, let's default to automation. That's problematic if it's not done right.
What are the biggest challenges for multidisciplinary teams when it comes to using agile methodologies?
Wow. So challenges specific to diverse teams in general. Uh, when we speak of agile, because there are challenges. People tend to believe that diverse teams, cross-domain, multicultural, do just automatically thrive in agile context, but that's not right. There are some specific challenges for those teams, and this is something Kaleidos has experienced in the past, experienced this day, and will surely continue to experience in the future, and that's okay. We don't have an issue with that. We prefer diverse teams with these challenges than not having diverse teams and having other challenges. So I mentioned two that come to mind like immediately. First, these you need to understand each other's mindset, within a team. So that's a little lost in translation, because that happens a lot. What one person might perceive as absolutely critical, others might not even consider worth their attention. Their attention, that's amazing. That happens, and you see it all the time. The idea of team commitment ranks high in agile methodologies, right? That team commitment. um, and that commitment won't ever happen if the different perspectives are not connected through, it could be a shared vocabulary, a working team agreement. We like those a lot in Kaleidos. And most importantly, a respectful approach to everyone's contribution to the team. Without that, you don't have team commitment. That's not going to happen. Sorry, So I'll give you an example. This is classic design code misunderstanding. Designers, coders, or visual designers, engineers, and this misunderstanding that leads always to different criteria on what quality means. For example, quality is something, it's a perceived value of an output, something a deliverable. If two people coming from different perspectives see different aspects of quality and they are not connected, that's an issue, and that will happen in agile. Agile really needs quality to be part of the process, and having different perspective of quality is a challenge that needs to be addressed. So yeah, so perspectives, right? Different perspectives tend to create also small ghettos in teams, and ghettos tend to create private workflows like small black boxes, and that will inevitably end up in pseudo waterfall iteration like processes that are very rigid. And I'm sorry, but a collateral effect of that is that the product is going to be always sort of a work in progress. You know, what you are actually developing won't have this big picture sight, and you won't have real progress metrics. And so it's very important that these cross domain teams, which are amazing to watch when they are really like working great together, they have specific challenges, and Agile doesn't just sort them out for free to them. They need to address them specifically, and then everything is so great.
Which are the most common issues that a team faces when trying to implement Agile in their organizations?
So I think that there are many. We've seen so many. You know how we know about those? Because people using Taiga, they come to the product and they like the tool, they like the what Taiga has to offer, and they a lot of people do want Taiga to be their first Agile tool because it's so intuitive and all that. And they will ask for features. They will come and say, "I think this is a great tool for Agile." I mean, of course, it is. We all, you know, that's the core benefit of Taiga. It's very intuitive and easy to use and all that for different type of people, use cases. But they tend to ask for something they feel Taiga lacks in terms of Agile. And through those petitions, through those feature requests, we see those challenges. You know, we see how they are approaching Agile, and we learn a lot from those. We've actually written a lot of around this in the past. I like to basically just show people what they're asking, and then tell them why that could lead to the wrong outcome. They are unknowingly asking for non-agile um, processes. You know, so basically, when we see this, what the underlying problem is that they like the vocabulary, they like the liturgies, the habits, and they dress what they are doing in agile terms, but their old habits are still there. You know, the way they treat teammates, the way they perceive value, the way they prioritize, how middle management is factored in, how different hierarchies still apply. Um, when nothing around that changes, you have the appearance of agile, but at the core, it's not agile. And it's difficult to spot when you're going into agile. It's different. It's very difficult to spot that you are just fooling yourself. And so I'd say that the biggest enemy, or well, I wouldn't say enemy, but the biggest problem with agile is not like other methodologies or techniques. The biggest problem we have in agile is dysfunctional agile. Dysfunctional agile is terrible. It's people believing they're agile when they are not agile. And and you know, different teams will try to keep old habits in a different way. But if nothing truly has changed, at some point, uh, they will feel something's broken. And the issue I have is that they think agile is not for them. Like agile is not working. No, no. I, we don't know whether agile would work for you or not. You have to apply agile, and the agile manifesto is there for you as a beacon. Just watch that beacon. Um, and so I think it's keeping those old habits as a comfort zone that typically poses the greatest challenge for teams entering this agile mindset.